Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing how to do this kind of blooming furnish animation. It's going to be using splines as well as some matrix nodes to control the overall motion. It's really quite easy. It's not as scary as you think, so definitely follow along. If you want the project file, it's on my Patreon, like always on the free tier. And I also really respond to all the messages and comments. So if you're having trouble with this, please leave a comment. It's not a problem. I'm more than happy to help you guys. Yeah, let's jump right in. I've been kind of diving more into just general kind of like plant geonode systems. I think they're always really pretty. This is a fun one to start with because it has a natural motion and it's really cool. So we're going to start with a curved line, not a curved tip, curved line like so. And so basically we got to first get the motion once, and then we can use it like a repeat zone to make a lot more objects of it and use that to kind of drive the entire effect. So how are we going to make this move? So what we can use is a few different ways to make it move, but the way to make it move the easiest is probably going to be using matrix nodes. So we're going to be doing a transform point node, and we're going to do a set position, and we're going to be doing a position node. And so right here, nothing will happen. So we're saying take the position, transform it on this transform vector, or I guess on this transform matrix, excuse me, and set it back to the same position. There's no matrix here, so it's fine. So now let's mess around with it with a combine transform node. Purple to purple. I guess it's like, yeah, purple to purple, or what is this? Pink, fuchsia to fuchsia, purple to purple. It's looking good. Okay, let's also resample this curve at a bunch of points, like 50, probably reasonable. Cool. So we have the curve coming in, it's being resampled, changing the position, and the question is, how do we want to move it? Probably on the Y, or we can do it on the X. And so how do we want to drive that motion? Really simply, we want to drive it with a spline parameter. Put a factor in just so you guys can see it. So we did a math right here. We multiplied it. We get this cool spiraling effect. Why is it happening? Because it's going across the XYZ of the rotation as well. So we can clamp that really hard with using a combine XYZ and put it just on the X or something. So now we have this nice kind of curve, flippy floppy thing. It's looking cool. We can get a spiral if we want. If we do X and Y, we get this kind of cool saddle-y thing, whatever you want. Honestly, you can really kind of play around with these and you can get a lot of cool different shapes. So let's just do the X just starting off to make it really clean. I'd say we want about this much going. This is kind of the main, thing we're looking for, right? So we have it kind of moving in a certain direction. And if we instance it a bunch more of them using a repeat zone or something, it's not really instancing because it's more making more geometry for it. Then we can drive this all kind of making it look cool, right? So what do we want to instance? Or can we say instance? What do we want to repeat? We want to repeat exactly this curve line a bunch of times. We pipe this in, it's still moving them, which is cool. We do like 5. We're gonna have 5 of them in here. We look at this, we see 5 right here, so we know there's 5 splines. It's repeated 5 times, so it gets it up to 4. Well, no, it's 5, just kidding, 0 to 4, perfect. And then we're looking at this, in order to get this kind of being driven to do a bunch of changes of it, let's also kind of like shift it. So if we do another combined transform, we can stack them. So let's do this, and let's also do a matrix multiply. This is kind of how you add matrices. So you multiply them because remember, it has all these different parameters on the matrix. So that's kind of how it works. We're gonna do Alt-S to swap the two. And then from here, we're going to want to translate it a little bit. So the question is how much we're going to want to translate it. We probably want to rotate it or something. And so what we can do is we can take all of this. Let me just clean it up a tiny bit. So here we go. Nice. So this part of the transform is working great as we want to see it. Now we want to make sure we can see these different ones by translating it. So how can we do that? We have this right here coming in. We're probably going to want to actually use the overall ID to drive this animation. So we're going to do a set ID up here. The ID is the iteration number right here. And let's just add in 1. So we shift it a little bit. So now the ID is starting off at 0, starting off at 1. I think if we actually see it, we see it going through, right? We have ID 4. Doesn't that look nice? Cool. We have the ID set. And then we can also do is we can then use this ID, which we now have a value for it. So if we do ID, we plug it into rotation or something. We do a combine XYZ in. We're now getting this exploded value, right? So probably want to do it on the X. Just kidding. Probably on the Z. There we go. So now we're getting this working. So we have the ID coming through. It's then being used to kind of drive the overall kind of like split of everything. So now that we have the ID and we're driving it through with the combine XYZ on the Z side, we're now having it for each version of it. We're having it kind of move through. If we had a math node here, we do multiply. We can also choose a different kind of orientation for it. So let's do 1 for now. That's fine. Great. So now we have this kind of coming through. It's looking good. What we can also do is we can add a transform geometry right here. And if we offset this by like a little bit, so look at this right here. It's offsetted like this. And then we're going through, we're kind of getting all of these different changes of the point. So we know we're doing on the X, so maybe on the X is probably going to be the best for us. Right? What's cool is this is kind of making a spiral automatically for us. So why is that happening? Basically, we're making a new spline here each time we're going off, right? We increase this account, it's going a bit bigger. And then we are using this combined transform here to basically have it be rotated depending on how far it is on the Z off of the ID. So that basically is letting us drive this rotation. We pull this down to 0, we're seeing it go here, right? So we go to 1 and it's spiraling out. So this is kind of how it's working. So that's why we're getting the spiral for it when we're literally just doing a really simple repeat zone with this transform geometry to define it. And we even probably could do like a minus 0.01 or so. Now it's going down a little bit too. So looking at all of this, it's kind of going down. So now we're kind of getting this spiral really easily with just a couple nodes inside this repeat zone. It's really an easy way of kind of making dynamic spirals with the multiply matrices nodes and the combined trend. Awesome. So now we also want to use this same ID value to define how much we want this like factor to work. So if we do like this, plug it in here, we're now getting this kind of exploding out, right? And we could have this value, clamp everything as we're kind of seeing. But the problem is the overall ID value is just too big. It's whole numbers, right? So how can we change whole numbers to something smaller? What we do is we do a map range node. And the question is, what is the size of the ID? We know we have the iteration count, so that's the exact number for it. So if we do an integer right here, we say this is 11, plug this in here, make it split and plug it in here. We're now going from like 0, or I guess 1 to 11 to go from basically a 0 to 1. So we're now making it it's remapped to like a much more easy to use kind of like parameter. So if we increase the min and change the max, we're now having this kind of like bloom how we want it to look, right? So we're having this kind of explode out as we want to see. The trick right there is changing the min off of that. So if we want to increase the overall number of splines, like 50, maybe that's too big on the minus Z, so it's minus 0.001. And then I think it's exploding out too much, 0.001, keeping it much more tight. And then we look at this, basically the effect is done. So we can control both of these parameters with this, the overall minimum level of like rotation. And this is the overall bloom kind of like, this is the overall bloom parameter right here, this multiply after it, right? So now it's kind of coming through. We have like, again, we have like a controller. You know what, let's just do this. Control J, or is it? Shift P. This is the controller, and Shift P. This is the spread of bloom. These are the kind of the two main things we want to kind of play with on animating it. What's nice is we use this to kind of make it all super linear and straight. Let's just see what happens to this. It's moving around, kind of making even more of a spiral look. If we go like this, that's pretty wacky actually. It's like some like alien thing. Cool. Anyways, you can do lots of different motion. The point is you have options. 1 is our max push. Nice. So we have the overall effect done, right? So now to do the rest of this, what we want to do is essentially take this and then also kind of add in a remesh curve. So how are we gonna do that? We're gonna do a Shift A, curve, Bezier circle, and we're gonna scale this in, A, scale, grab X, maybe Y, tab, edit mode. Let's just go. I'm just gonna make it look like it's done. Let's scale it in. Cool, so we have our reference curve right here. We're gonna do a curve remesh or spline or curve to mesh, and we're gonna use this guy. Nice. And then we're going to use a math node with a spline parameter. We're going to use the fact that it's going in. Nice. And then we're going to use a float curve. And I think we want it to be so, right? Something like this. And we do multiply. Now that's coming in. And then we do another multiply. It's looking pretty good. And then we're going to do I think it's looking pretty good actually. I might decrease this a little. Let's just do a multiply here. Let's just do nice. I think it looks good. Maybe make this beginning part of small. And then let's do a resample curve. Let's do a length. It's a lot of nice. So now we have to the general kind of like split. It looks a bit like a plant. Let's set a quick material. Nice. So we have a basic quick material. Then we also want to set the scene. So I think the best way to doing this is we just do a quick like vase or something for it. So I set the scene a bit better. I'm happy with the scene looking now, but I think the last thing we're kind of forgetting is let's add a bit of noise right here. So before we have this multiply right here, let's add some noise. So if we just do a math node and we add in some random value, plug it in here, minus 0.1, 0.1. Now it's just a little bit of noise for everything. So it's not going to be absolutely perfect. I think that's good. So we kind of have this potted plant look. So let's look at it on and off, on, off. And it looks really clear when you have it from the top down. So this is with it off. It's like perfectly done. You can probably make it a bit bigger, right? I think it looks just a lot more natural with that bit of noise. So it's no longer just this perfect split on everything. So here's how to do the entire system again. Let's just talk through it one more time. So we have this potted plant. We're looking at the system. And so looking at it, it looks like a lot, but it's not that hard, honestly. We have a curve line coming in where we sampled a bunch of times. We're using a repeat zone to make a bunch of versions of the overall kind of curve line. We're transforming it a little bit, so that way on the repeat zone, we have all these different splines to kind of like shift it off a little bit. It's looking cool there. And then what we can do is we use a set position with a transform point into matrix nodes in order to, one, get the overall curve spinning, as well as rotating across to kind of get that spiral formation. We're then going to remesh it with just whatever we make, which maybe a little mesh curve over here. And then we're setting material and rendering it out. It's that simple. And what's nice is by doing it this way, we have this controller right here where we can decide how much of this is going to kind of bloom out. It controls the overall max bloom. And we have this set min to also decide how much is actually kind of like what's the minimum required amount of bloom. So together, both of these things really make the bloom effect look pretty good. So that's going to be a good way of selling it. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Remember, I have my Patreon, so feel free to get the project file if this was confusing and let me know if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to help talk you guys through it. Peace.
Augury.